Welcome to Click Nigeria online channel. This is the Outlook where we bring you in-depth analysis of pressing issues shaping our society. Today, we turn our focus to political crisis in Rivers State and the recent Supreme Court verdict that has sparked nationwide discussions. My name is Nasser Yunusa. Joining me is Mr. Austin Aigbe, a development expert and a public affairs analyst with deep insight into the situation. You're welcome to our show, sir.
Thank you very much.
Nice meeting you.
It's an honor.
Follow us on our social media handle. For Facebook and YouTube is at Click Nigeria, and for X and Instagram is at Click Nigeria 1. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. The political crisis in Rivers State has been a power struggle between Governor Sim Fubara and his predecessor, Nelson Wike, who is now the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory. What started as an internal party disagreement within the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has escalated into a full-blown political battle, with issues ranging from control over the legislature to governance disputes and loyalty conflicts. So, Mr. Augustine, let's start with, give us an overview of the causes of the Rivers State crisis.
Thank you very much. Like you have said in your introductory remark, it is clear that one godfather wanted to maintain a threshold of the state. Arguably, you will give it to Nyesom Wike when he bought all of the funds of the contestant in the 2023 election. In fact, Nyesom Wike invested huge resource, maybe state resource, invested huge resource in the procurement of the nomination form for all the candidates, including the members of the House of Assembly, the governor, the senators, the House of Representatives. And it was a block intervention. And Nyesom Wike will say openly that he did that for SY reason. And having done that, you expect certain loyalty to this individual. But let's take it back a bit. The same Nyesom Wike has said that the governor is very powerful. By the time he leaves office as governor, he will never interfere because he knows the power of the governor. Soon after handing over power, he suddenly realized that no, he can't let the governor go. He must maintain threshold of the state. Apparently, Rivers State has the economic basket of the nation, and that's why it's important that at the end of the day, what is happening in Rivers is a threshold of maintenance or dominance of power that you don't want to let go. And in any case, there are also forces from outside the bloc that is coming to someone like Fubara to say, I think it's time. How can you allow Wike to control you? After all, who controlled Wike when he was governor? And what has happened in the state of Rivers is the likes of all of these big men, permit me to mention them, former governors, who would have told him that no, it's time to maintain control, maintain dominance. You are an injured man, and all of those things gradually, because of the pressure from former Governor Wike, automatically that gap just started. And if you saw what Fubara has done, it began to align with all the enemies of Nyesom Wike, and that will necessarily make Nyesom Wike very angry. And Nyesom Wike, in an attempt to maintain that dominance, needed to reconstruct his own loyalty, and rather he went to the federal mind, recognizing the power of the federal government.
Now, the power of the federal government, is it used in the state right now?
Of course. People say loosely that in Nigeria there's a state capture. State capture. The state has been captured. What is the state? The police, the army, the media, the judiciary, and all of the forces that control and maintain dominance and or maybe state peace and otherwise have been captured. And you see people actually posting commentaries on social media to say this individual owns judiciary, this individual owns executive, this individual owns the legislature, and that they've been captured. Where would the Supreme Court, for instance, give that kind of judgment? It's appalling. Calling a certain political party as cancer and the other one as malaria, and suddenly the cancer party, I mean, everybody, you know this thing I'm talking about. Yes, so what I'm saying in essence is that the moment that power block, because when Nyesom Wike was governor, he literally silenced I use the word silence all the political bigwigs in the state, including the first governor of 1999 in Rivers State, in the Fourth Republic. So it silenced all of them, including Amechi, and all of that snowballed to today. So Wike wanted to maintain a dominance in a way that if you don't produce your successor, you are going to be irrelevant in a state. So Wike wanted to produce a successor. Suddenly, those forces that he fought, now went behind Fubara to start giving Fubara the strength. Ordinarily, Fubara will never, I repeat, will never have had the power to engage Wike, because he knows, number one, you don't have the senators on your side, you don't have the House of Representative members on your side, you don't have the House of Assembly members on your side, you neither have, in fact, maybe the people, and a few of those people, if you recall,
making it like a tribal.
It wasn't more like a tribal.
It was like an ethnic fight.
It was a dominance of you can call it Wike tribal force, because Wike was the only name in Rivers at some point in Rivers State. So when you hear of Chubike, at some point, former Governor Chubike was in Abuja. In fact, he literally never went home, because Wike will do anything and everything to just put him in a cage. But having been out of office, and suddenly, you know what happened in 2023 election, how he wanted to become vice president. In fact, first, how he wanted to become president, and that never worked. He then wanted to become vice president, it didn't work, and it was not trouble for the PDP and Atiku, who was the presidential candidate. Fast forward to what we have now. It is clearly the problem of a personal vendetta against the PDP and Atiku, and that's Wike for you. And there is nothing more than that. And I'll tell you why I think so. Number one, he has said again and again, at some point when Fubara was going to be sworn in, he invited Atiku, and it was a problem. Why was it a problem? Why would you invite my enemy to my state? And in fact, Wike was the governor. So that gradually the conflict began at that time. It was clear that Fubara was with Atiku. By inviting Atiku to his swearing in, why would Fubara even do that in the first place? You should have settled down, maintain some level of threshold before you begin to fight. But however, he listened to the opposition against Wike, and he decided to fight. But is it a good fight? Yes or no? And in fact, both sides, I think, have a very strong force.
Okay. Is it a good fight? Yes or no? And there have been multiple battles, legal battles. Now, the Supreme Court have delivered its verdict. Okay? What was the key outcome of this in Rivers State? Because you can see what's happening now.
So you see, the court of law, certain time is, any decision made at the Supreme Court is not really for law. It's for peace. Supreme Court made certain cases to ensure peace or enforce peace. Supreme Court, if you look at law in most of the time, most of the cases that Supreme Court has made, you are going to be extremely angry. For instance, why will number 4 individual who score number 4 become governor in a state? And you want to ask Supreme Court?
Are there no reasons? So that when you read through the reasons of why such person became governor, or
so how will you justify number 4 becoming governor? What kind of reason will you? In fact, the Supreme Court has even said that case should not ever be used, which means they realize their errors. Let's take it backward a bit. Is it the first state where members were suspended, or it happened in Edo State during Oshomole administration? Oshomole ruled the state for like 8 years. Not more than 10 members of House of Assembly. Not more than 10. Oshomole. No, I think it was Obaseki. Sorry, it was Obaseki. No, but it started from Oshomole. It was Oshomole last term, then to Obaseki. Obaseki was for the 8 years of the regime. It started from Obaseki. So for about 12 years, there was never complete members of House of Assembly.
Don't you think that was what Fubara wanted to copy?
But it was not only Fubara. Wike did it.
Wike did the same.
Wike did it. So when Wike undermined the House of Assembly to do all the things he did, why did people not complain? Is it only that state? So when you talk about Fubara did not do it. The members decamped. The members said they were no longer in the party that brought them to power. Unlike in Edo, where the governor refused to swear them in. two different games.
Okay, now we can understand the difference.
The difference.
Those were, in Rivers, they were sworn.
They were sworn in. They were performing their role. The moment there was conflict between Wike and Fubara, then you have some 8 members or 4 or so for Fubara, and the others are for Wike. But the last trunk is for Wike, and they can determine by way of simple majority to take action.
You've seen Fubara the impeachment notice.
Yes,
it was 26 members I saw.
26 members. We know that 27 were suspended along with Wike now.
Yes.
Whether 27 members, but there are about 4 members with Fubara. At least that I know. About 4 members who are sitting, who passed the budget.
Yeah.
So, but the court is saying that that 4 is not enough to pass the budget. So, but fast forward to where we are today. If the Supreme Court says this is it, and the president, who ought not to have made comment on that, I use the word very loosely, who ought not to have made comment. Fubara had lawyers who could have advised him on what to do. The president went ahead to say, Fubara, comply with the Supreme Court judgment. Has the president ever advised any other person to comply with the Supreme Court judgment? Why the case of Rivers? Why?
So it was a case of a rule of law to go with the rule of law.
So when the Supreme Court decide on certain cases, I mean there are many cases the Supreme Court has decided on, why is it that the president has not come out to say comply with the Supreme Court judgment? It's about interest. It's clear that the president had interest in Rivers. It's clear. There's no need to because if not direct interest but indirect through his minister Nyesom Wike. But I haven't said that. Suddenly Fubara agreed to obey the Supreme Court judgment and decided officially, he wrote to the House of Assembly that was coming to present the bill.
Okay, now let me come in here.
Okay.
Before he decided,
yes,
the House of Representatives in Rivers State had invited him and he turned him down. They gave him 48 hours to show himself in the State House, in the State House of Representatives to represent the budget. He didn't come. Okay,
so 2 wrongs can't make right. In any case, let me try to do something.
Yeah.
You see, I like when certain policies or programs favor one and you utilize it. We've had countless number of resolutions at the National Assembly in Abuja calling the president to take certain action, and the president never did. So do you count that as an error? We have had cases where the president was summoned, ministers were summoned in previous administration, in this administration, they never showed up. Are you saying that's an error? If you invite the governor and the governor communicated to you that XYZ day I am coming, because you need to put the budget together. Don't forget, the budget is already being used.
Yes.
And the governor, this is politics. The governor already knew what they were going to do. And eventually he appeared. You shut the governor out. And the governor made a press conference in front of the assembly. Do you know what that means? It means that I have obeyed the Supreme Court judgment. You are not available to accept it. And suddenly, there were countless number of threats. There were all manner of reception for Nyesom Wike, who appeared in a community. People argued that he was not supposed to come, and he wanted to tell those on the other side that I am Nyesom Wike, I am a fighter, and he came. While going to that event, we saw what happened. They had to be. There had to be a lot of gunshots, tear gas, to try to disperse protesters who were resisting his appearance in that community. Fast forward to today, the moment he left, he made certain commentaries, and one of those was before going, he said it's yours. They are the minutest. Forgetting that we have an Ijaw president. If you are to look at ethnic correlation in this country, you can give Ijaw the 4th largest ethnic group.
Yes. Okay, let's go back to our topic. How do you think the verdict now will impact the political landscape in Rivers? Because you've talked about the Ijaw, you talked about how he went to the Supreme Court to show that yes, I've obeyed. Now the House of Representatives has disobeyed. So what is the political landscape in Rivers State? So
right now, Rivers is a very interesting story.
Yes.
It reminds me of during the Obasanjo administration, where he had asked to grind with certain states as at that time, which led to the a state of emergency in Ekiti and of course in elsewhere, and of course during Goodluck Jonathan, a state of emergency. Let me bring it. The current state in Rivers, rather than follow a political solution, that legal solution alone is not enough. In fact, why do we do alternative dispute resolution? ADRO. ADRO is to ensure peace is effective. ADRO is to ensure that there's a 50-50 win. That no one has a 100% win. Unlike in the Nigerian election, when a winner wins, it wins all. And that has created a number of disputes in the Nigerian electoral circle. That's why you see a number of court cases. But if you do a representative democracy, you are going to literally see all the parties represented. But in this case, majority wins and majority takes all. And for the Supreme Court judgment, it was more like an election where everybody takes all. You have given the Wike side, in quotes Wike side, because the House of Assembly members are on Wike side. And Fubara literally lost all.
But when you look at this judgment, was Sim not wrong by using only 4?
So the question is Sim wrong? Yes.
So because he was wrong and the aggrieved went to the court. So it passed through the stages of the court and now landed to the Supreme Court. So the judgment was made, and I felt like, oh, this judgment is right. Because Sim was using only 4.
So Sim was using only 4.
He stopped their entitlement. They were not going on salaries as well.
So when you decamp, unless you're on the side of government, you see, let me tell you the politics here.
Yes.
We have had people decamp from the National Assembly, and there's a court case, and suddenly they are freezed off, and they never enjoy the entitlement. So when you say you decamp, the law, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria says, when you decamp as a parliamentarian, if you decamp, you are expected to lose your seat. But what most people say, they want to hide under conflict in parties. That because there's conflict in my party, that's why I'm decamping.
Okay.
Show me proof that there's conflict in the party, and that's not what the Constitution says. The Constitution says outrightly, I am not a lawyer, but I've read that part of the Constitution. It's just like Section 305 that the President quoted, and which of course maybe we'll talk about in the course of this conversation. In the law that talked about the camping says that when the party is divided, there's a division in the party. What does division mean? For instance, a party A has 200 members and 20 or 40 or 50 left to form a new alliance. Maybe they call it, at some point in this country, we have what they call new PDP. 2015 elections, ahead of 2015 elections, sometime around 2014, there was new PDP. That is division. A part has divided, but they still maintain PDP.
They call it new PDP.
They call it new PDP, whereas there is PDP. That's division.
Okay.
But in this case, the lawyers or the members are trying to argue whether there is division, meaning conflict. There is always human conflict in any gathering, including when 2 or 3 are gathered, there's conflict. But the matter went on to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court now says, no, return them back. So if you say return them back, it means that you start afresh. Whatever has happened before, when you were not there, is immaterial. And I think that is a norm, certainly the case of Edo, where Obaseki ruled the state with about 10 or so members of assembly, and he ruled well, even when the case was in court. So who is facilitating this case in court? Again, the invisible hand of demand and supply.
All right, the invisible hand of demand and supply. I have to take a laugh there. How do you think this verdict now will impact the political landscape in Rivers State? Because before I go to where we are going to land somewhere. Now, this verdict, has it affected the political landscape in Rivers State?
Of course. However, it has led to certain threats. I've had the jaws and all the let me stay with the jaws. I'm not looking at ethnic correlation, because when you hear people talking, most often from Alhaji Asari Dokubo, who is a prominent Ijaw man, making some commentaries And I've had people also talking about if this happened, this is Rivers. We are the owner of Rivers. Those kind of comments are very weighty. And here you are, former Governor Nyesom Wike is also making his own weighty allegation to say, who are they? Who are they? So there's a conflict arising from that. And again, it's snowball from that judgment. In some of those threats from the own front, from the Rivers front, they had claimed that Rivers facility, oil facility, will become a threat if they take over Rivers State. And what also led to the effect of that Supreme Court judgment was an attempt to now impeach Sim Fubara.
Yes.
Which may not work. I use the word may not work. If there's a resolution from the House of Assembly, you have to communicate with the Chief Judge. Yes. But what did the House of Assembly do? They tried to frame the Chief Judge up in an attempt to remove him. So that they could create an haven for the impeachment to say true. You cannot impeach the governor without the Chief Judge of the state, who will have to set up a committee.
Let me ask for my audience. The Chief Judge, is he on Fubara's side?
So, for the purpose of the audience, the Chief Judge is the Chief Judge. We don't know whose side is he. So for them to say, for them to try to push him under pressure means that they assume
he appointed the Chief Judge.
He appointed the Chief Judge, and that he will be on his side.
With this particular, we talked about Asari Dokubo giving his threat, we talked about Nyesom Wike giving his threat, and there was one or two crises in the states which led to the state of emergency. The state of emergency in Rivers State. What is the way forward?
You see, I've listened to a number of people. I've listened to historical context. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, claimed that Obasanjo's declaration of state of emergency was illegal. That Obasanjo had no justification, the powers to remove the governor. So there is a declaration of a state of emergency, and there is a suspension and subsequent removal of an elected official.
Okay.
In both cases, let's treat both cases differently.
Okay.
Assuming that the president had the right in section 305 as claimed by the president or as affirmed by the president, he does have that power to declare state of emergency where he think that there is a partial conflict or a situation that may likely degenerate into some heavy crisis. He could declare state of emergency. But the same section did not say he can suspend a city elected official. So under which justification did he suspend an elected official? Under which justification did he appoint an administrator? I mean,
there was a letter to the House of Representatives, to the Senate.
Yes.
I think I watched on the national TV. That yes. A letter to the Senate to approve the state of emergency in last state.
I'm not arguing that. It has to communicate. That's actually the format. You communicate to the National Assembly. In the joint sitting, we have to agree with the president for a state of emergency to be enforced. That's on one side. I'm talking about it under which provision of the Constitution that gave power for an appointment of a sole administrator in a state where you have an elected official. Under which condition? In section 305, if you read everything, I've read it, there is no provision there. No provision. So where did the president got his own power from?
Okay.
To superintend over a state, and he went further to say that the sole administrator will now answer to the Federal Executive Council.
Yes.
The question is, we have been talking about this conflict. In this conflict in Rivers State, it is two gladiators, Nyesom Wike and Simeon Fubara. Now, will Nyesom Wike be sitting at the Federal Executive Council meeting where the case of Rivers State will be decided? You can declare a state of emergency on that line and protect your air facility. You can.
I think that's what the president used.
He used and then removed the state elected official?
Okay. I wanted to say something before I forget. He said the political gladiators, Fubara, Nyesom Wike, don't the president have what we call executive order? The commander-in-chief. He's entitled to such powers to remove, as a commander-in-chief of the armed forces and the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, when he sees situation escalating beyond controls of the two gladiators, Don't he has the power as president?
So if he has the power, why will he go after one? You said two. So why will you go after one? Why don't you go for the two? An ideal father will call the two sons, which he did.
Which he did.
I gave it to him. I won't engage them, and they refuse to maintain the course of action. What you do as a father, deal with the two children. Why will you deal with one and leave the other? That's one. Two, why will you create a scenario that looks as if we're in a military regime? And yet, the president is in charge of ECOWAS, is in charge of ECOWAS, who is after the military regime in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, who once made an attempt in Niger to remove the military regime, and of course that decision backfired. Suddenly, the same president is declaring a state of emergency in a very minute location, whereas the real danger in this country is northwest, where kidnapping is on the rampage. There's economic crisis. No state of emergency has been declared on food production, shortage of food production, increases in goods and services. And I don't know if you own your house in Abuja. Go and rent a property in Abuja. They'll tell you pay 20% of this, 10% of this. No emergency has been declared on it.
Which leads me to my next question. My next question now is, what is the broader implication of this crisis in Nigerian politics?
The ultimate solution is that the Rivers solution needs a political solution. And what is this political solution? At some point, there need to be Nyesom Wike staying on his path and Fubara staying on his path. There need to be an agreement, not an agreement by the president. No, because there was one by the president, and Fubara said he was coerced to sign that document. And if you are coerced to sign a document, you have right to reject that document. A document that there are elders and leaders of the Niger Delta who need to intervene. Traditional rulers of repute need to call both parties together. And what is this problem? The problem ultimately is Pepe, who controls the Pepe of Rivers State.
Resources.
You can call it resources. At the end of the day, if these parties agree that Nyesom Wike, because of your investment, again, I don't want to utterly forbid Nyesom Wike's argument. His resources, I started by saying that his resources was used for the procurement of nomination forms, including the campaigns, including the victory, eventual victory, of all of these individuals elected in Rivers State. There need to be some compensation. However, in the context of contestation is the Godfather's role. So we need to draw the line between the Godfather and resources. Can we create an opportunity to pay off Nyesom Wike's investment in these individuals? Maybe that can soften the mind of Nyesom Wike. And I agree, Nyesom Wike is angry. Everyone listening to me, including you will be angry with someone that you literally raised from the dust, arguably from the dust, who went ahead to stab you from the back. However, if you turn the other matter around, when you who appointed somebody, who made somebody, become overbearing, you push that your so-called loyalist to the wall. And if it gets to the wall, if there's nowhere to pass through, it will turn back and start to fight. And that's the case of Rivers. Can we create a level playing field where sincere reconciliation happens for the benefit of the people? If this continues, Rivers is the egg of this nation. It will impact on our daily threshold to the international market, our barren contribution to the international market, which at some point nosedive from about 2.4 million barrels per day to 400 barrels per day. Do you want us to get back to that point?
No.
Do you want us to get back to the point where militancy in Niger Delta resume?
No.
Do you want us to get to the part where kidnapping in Niger Delta resume? No. Do you want to get to the point where foreigners are unable to travel, foreign direct investment into Nigeria, particularly in the oil sector, have to be returned back, impacting on our economy? The answer will be no. In the best interest of Nigeria, Mr. President needs a political solution and not an aggressive one.
So I'll take that as a possible resolution for a way forward for Rivers State. Now, before we wrap up, what are your final thoughts on these issues?
Generally, I think godfathers should understand. And also, let me bring to fore, the crisis in Lagos Assembly was handled well by the president. Well. Even though we know that it was anti-jurisprudence.
Yeah.
But the president went ahead to step down a woman.
And he stated it.
And he stated the one that was impeached.
Yes.
Why can't the president also do the same in Rivers State? It is possible if the will is there. But if the will is not there, you follow your mind. Like I said, Rivers State, everybody's interested in Rivers. Politicians and non-politicians alike, opposition and government in power, all interested in Rivers for a singular reason. It has potential to fund the 2027 elections. You may not like it. That is an underlying phenomenon, and that's the underlying truth.
I'll take that as an allegation. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that that's what is the president's mind. Maybe he wants peace in Rivers State. Well said, Mr. Austin, and thank you for this insightful discussion. Well, we appreciate you. And that's all we have time for today. Thank you for joining us. And our audience, thank you also. Stay tuned for more updates on Click Niger online channel. To my producer, Rotimi Martins, Jacinta Osagi, and my supervising producer, Ehi Okinyani, I say thank you. I'm your host, Nasir Yunusa.